Summary of Ishmael by Daniel Quinn. An unnamed writer sees an ad in his newspaper. Teacher seeks pupil. Must have an earnest desire to save the world. Even though the narrator at first doesn't believe this ad, he goes to the office building described in the ad and is shocked to find that he is the only person who came. The reporter goes inside and sees a fully grown gorilla sitting behind a glass window. He also sees a sign in the room that says, "With man gone, will there be hope for gorilla?" The narrator is surprised to find that all he has to do to talk to the monkey is look at him. The ape says he was born in Africa in the 1930s, but then he was taken by people and put in a show. A man named Mr. Suckalo bought him at the fair. Suckalo named him Ishmael, taught him how to talk to people through telepathy, and gave him books to read. In the end, Ishmael was much smarter and knew a lot more than Suckalo. When Suckalo saw that this was the case, he asked Ishmael to teach his daughter Rachel. Ishmael did this for a long time, but he says she never learned his most important lessons. He will try to teach the listener these lessons now. Ishmael ends his story of his life by saying that after Mr. Suckalo died, his wife, Mrs. Suckalo, fought to keep Ishmael away from her house. Because of this, Ishmael now lives in this building and gets money from Rachel. Ishmael asks the narrator if he feels like a prisoner, and the narrator says that he does, but he can't explain why. Ishmael tells the narrator that he is part of a culture and has been taught certain stories that explain the link between people, the world, and the gods. These stories are so common that the narrator doesn't even notice them. Ishmael says he will try to help the storyteller figure out what's wrong with these stories and why they're not true. Ishmael says that his project will be to show the listener that human history is the story of two groups, the takers and the leavers, who tell two very different stories about man, the world, and the gods. Ishmael says that the humans who created agriculture and society are the takers. These are the people who still rule the earth today. Leavers, on the other hand, are people like the Navajo and the Bushmen who never accept agricultural methods and don't care about the supposed benefits of society. Ishmael asks the storyteller to tell him the most important story in his society during his first lesson. The narrator can't do this, and Ishmael's insistence that he try makes him angry. Eventually, he gets a tape player and records himself talking about the past of the world, the beginning of humans, and the agricultural revolution. Ishmael shows the storyteller that this version of the past of the world is a lie because it is unfairly good to the human race. The storyteller knows Ishmael is right, but he or she can't get excited about it. Ishmael doesn't like how the storyteller doesn't seem excited. In the second lesson, Ishmael and the storyteller talk about what the takers see as the middle and end of their story. Takers think that their inventions, like farming and technology, have made them very happy and satisfied, but they also think that they need to keep discovering new worlds to find more food and resources. At the same time, takers think that their science and exploration will always lead to death and damage. They also think that this is because humans are inherently bad. Ishmael says that this is a wrong way to look at the facts. Taker culture and acting out taker stories do lead to death and sadness, but people are not naturally evil or sinful, he says. Ishmael asks the narrator to describe the other stories that people in the taker society believe in during later lessons. With a lot of help, the narrator learns that his society, which is called Western or industrialized, thinks it has the right to rule the whole world. He says that humans think of their travel as a victory, which means that they are actually at war with the earth. Ishmael says that this goes against the one rule of life, which says that different species should never fight each other. Ishmael comes to the conclusion that the human species will go extinct because people break the rules of life. People have tried to stop this from happening by making more food, but this never works because more food production leads to more people, which cancels out any progress. The next time the narrator goes to his lesson, he is surprised to see Ishmael sitting in the room instead of behind the glass window. Ishmael talks to the listener about the Hebrew Bible. He says that it is a coded tale of humanity from the leaver's point of view. Ishmael thinks that when Adam eats from the tree of knowledge, he learns how to control his surroundings and use farming to make war on the earth. The fact that this process is called a fall shows that Levers told the story first, long before it was written down in the Hebrew Bible. Ishmael also says that the story of Cain and Abel is about people who take and people who don't. The narrator's uncle comes to visit, he misses a deadline, and he has to get a tooth pulled. So, he leaves Ishmael alone for a week. When he gets back to his building, he is surprised to find that Ishmael has left. The narrator does some study and finds out that Grace Sokolow, who was Mrs. Sokolow, has died. This means that Ishmael no longer has a way to make money to keep him from being captured. The person telling the story finds Ishmael's new home, which is a moving circus. There, he finds Ishmael lying in a cage from which he could easily get out if he wanted to. Ishmael doesn't pay attention to the storyteller and tells him to leave. The next day, the narrator comes back, and Ishmael continues his lessons with some reluctance. He says that one strange thing about taker society is that takers both love and hate history. Because they don't have much evidence about how to act, they always ask Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, for help. Levers, on the other hand, act just like their ancestors did 3 million years ago. They have learned how to act by trying things and seeing what works and what doesn't. By ignoring the levers, the takers are ignoring the best proof that people have gathered about how to act. In the next lesson, the narrator pays a circus worker, who is called the Bree, to talk to Ishmael after dark. Ishmael asks the narrator why he is so interested in the ways of the levers. The narrator says that he thinks the leftist groups of the 1960s failed because people knew that taker culture was wrong, but they didn't know what story to replace it with. Ishmael is happy with this answer, so he and the narrator do a difficult exercise in which he plays a lever and the narrator plays a taker. After this exercise, the narrator has a breakthrough and figures out why takers want to be takers. They don't want to be at the hands of the gods and the weather. Instead, they want to be in charge of their own lives. Takers have no real reason to be the way they are. They just want to be in charge and different from the other animals on Earth. After this lesson, the reporter meets Art Owens, the man who runs the circus. The narrator talks with Owens about buying Ishmael. They agree on a price, but then the narrator says he needs to think about it. In the next lesson, the reporter asks Ishmael what he thinks a lever should do. Ishmael gives the narrator some goals: persuade as many people as possible to stop following the taker's ways and to reject the idea that it is man's job to rule the world. Ishmael also brings up an important point: the levers don't have to give up farming completely. Agriculture isn't bad in and of itself. The only time it breaks the rules of life is when it becomes the way of the world and is used to make war on the planet. Ishmael says that, in general, levers like the narrator must try out new ways to stay alive, inventing as they see fit. The person telling the story leaves Ishmael to fix his car. He plans to buy Ishmael and drive away, but he doesn't know where he'll go. When he goes back to the circus, he finds that Ishmael has died of pneumonia. The narrator hadn't noticed that Ishmael had been getting sick. The person who took the payment gives the narrator Ishmael's things, including the picture the narrator saw the first time he went to see Ishmael. The narrator gets back in his car and goes home, where he looks at the picture. He is shocked to find another message on the back: with gorilla gone, will there be hope for man?
About the author. Daniel Quinn was born and raised as a Catholic in Omaha, Nebraska. Later, he went to several places to learn, including St. Louis University, where he got a BA in English. After that, he went to Bardstown, Kentucky, to study at the Abbey of Our Lady of Gethsemane in order to become a monk. Quinn had a fight with his teachers at the school. This fight was one of the reasons he stopped being a Catholic in the mid-1960s. After leaving Kentucky, Quinn went to New York and worked for many years in publishing. He didn't write his own book until 1988. It was a science fiction book called Dreamer, and even though it got good reviews, it didn't sell very well. Quinn's big break came in 1991, when he wrote Ishmael, an intellectual conversation that became his best-known book. Ted Turner, who owns a lot of media companies, gave Quinn the prestigious Turner Award because of Ishmael. After the success of Ishmael, Quinn wrote 2 other philosophical books about anthropology and the environment, The Story of Bee, 1996, and My Ishmael, 1997. Since 2000, he has taken part in many protests, talks, and discussions about anarchism, the environment, and pacifism.
Hope we summarized it fully and you liked it. Please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel so that we are motivated to create more videos.